COVID-19 has given us a real wake-up call. Here on Tulinde Island in the Mafia Island Marine Park, Tanzania, we've been forced to rethink our strategy and accept that the idea that helping to educate the children of our island community would lead to jobs in tourism, taking pressure off the environment was perhaps naive. We now know without any doubt that tourism is extremely vulnerable to catastrophic collapses. Last year, after 28 years of operation, we were obliged to crowdfund just to keep our health and education initiatives on Tulinde Island alive. In 2020, hundreds of people in the Mafia Island Marine Park lost their jobs with no government support, but they still have to feed their children and pay medical bills. They, of course, have turned to exploiting the natural resources in their environment, with the tacit approval of the government in these very difficult times. And this is having devastating consequences. It has led to a huge increase in fishing, using unsustainable methods that damage the habitat, especially the primary producing substrate, such as corals and seagrasses. And this has led to a rapid decline in the health of our reefs and a loss of biodiversity, the cost of which we will only be able to calculate years later. The coral reefs of the Mafia archipelago are among the healthiest Western Indian Ocean and have some of the richest biodiversity. Most coral reefs in the Indian Ocean have been devastated over the past decades, particularly the last 2 decades. Tulinde Bay has survived this devastation, and now we find ourselves living in the middle of a World Heritage treasure. Our environment, here where we live, is heavily dependent on the health of our corals. If this decline of the health of our corals continues, the future looks extremely bleak for our community. The only prospect for many people in an overexploited environment stripped of biodiversity, with profound habitat destruction, is to eke out a meager existence in abject poverty. We have, as a result, redirected our focus to coral regeneration, coral conservation, and on creating more resilience in the local economy, because we need to protect against future economic shocks. But right now, let's have a look at what we're doing with corals, together with our partners, Tulinde Island Private Marine Reserve and the Mafia Island Marine Park Authority. The goal of the Ropes of Hope is to halt the decline of the coral reefs of the Mafia Island Marine Park and surrounds, which have been damaged by multiple bleaching events over the years and more recently by unsustainable fishing practices, and to help regenerate this wonder of nature to its full former splendor. Of course, conserving the healthy corals that we have has to be the first priority, but that falls in the remit of the Mafia Island Marine Park Authority and the Marine Parks and Reserves Unit of Tanzania. Our aim is to establish large-scale nurseries to serve as living gene banks, conserving genetic variability, but we are also approaching the coral reef ecosystem of the park holistically by including the local communities that live in the park and who depend on the natural resources of the park. Our efforts will focus on 1. Collecting and propagating as many different species and genotypes within species as possible from corals of opportunity, that is, found loose living fragments that would otherwise die, in order to create our living gene bank. 2. We're going to focus on conducting well-controlled and monitored research on methods for cost-effective reef regeneration and stimulation of natural coral recruitment. Growing corals is now well established. Getting outplanted corals to take hold and flourish is the pressing challenge of the moment. 3. We plan to involve the fishers of the islands within the park in coral propagation and regeneration in order to raise awareness of the economic importance of the reefs for their future, and to help them to diversify their money-making activities and develop alternative protein sources. In order to reduce fishing pressures and engage our fishing communities, we need to offer viable short-term alternatives to net fishing. The Ropes of Hope cannot do any of these things without your support. You can support us very easily by simply donating, or you can join us and come and learn how to be a coral gardening practitioner. Better still, Get hands-on, come and join us. Learn to become a coral practitioner yourself and help us shape the future trajectory of our coral reefs.